or like sleeping bag holders and things that you would want to store and carry about with you. If you're big into camping, sewing's really handy because although a lot of tents are made out of like a nylon synthetic material, some of the more expensive ones are canvas and can be sewn if they tear.
Oh wow, that's actually really really.
Also, if you lose some of the string for them, you can sew string on a. If you do it right, you can sew string because you lock it off with a bit of webbing that's about that size.
Yeah.
So you loop the string into it and then sew over it, holds the string, so you can make new tabs, new strings for. And that's just one instance of how you can transfer between different things. It doesn't have to just be for making dresses and hats. You can do all.
It's not just for the girls.
Yeah. Recovering race seats was a big one that I found out. We had a girl in, she was doing a race seat for her partner.
Okay.
Like a bucket seat for a car.
Oh, right.
So we don't just do clothes, we go all the way up to doing chairs.
Yeah, I've seen some of the projects, upholstering, and then I noticed as well that there was, which I thought was quite cool, there was like one of the ladies in earlier had done piping, and she'd done like it was pretty amazing. Like it actually looked like something you would get on a really fancy chair you would buy or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I will say is when on the tutelage for this kind of stuff, if you get it wrong, you are going to end up unpicking it because you don't learn if you don't.
Yeah.
So if you do something wrong, learning how to unpick the mistake and redo it the right way allows you to go, when you're doing it on your own or when you're having a moment where you're doing something you're fairly confident with, when you make a mistake, you can look down and go, I made a mistake, now I'm going to have to unpick it. It's not the greatest thing to have to do, but when you're sitting there unpicking it, you're like, well, I know where I've gone wrong, so it gives you a little bit more...
So you're troubleshooting as you...
Yeah. Once you've been taught, a lot of it then just starts to become natural.
Okay.
And if you struggle with one particular area, you can get help in that area, because just because you can sew, you can do pleated quilting and stuff like that, you might not be very good at doing trousers, for instance. So you can learn, you don't just have to learn all of it, you can learn section by section, so you can learn different techniques.
Yeah, I've noticed as well that there's I've seen a broad variety of projects that don't just limit, they're not just limited toward sewing. They seem to involve other techniques. And
we've had crochet, knitting. If you can make it, within reason, if you can make it, it's pretty much done with. I can't crochet or knit to save my. Well, I used to be able to knit. I'm not very good at it now, but macrame was another one that we've had done around here as well. So it's a pair called like tying. I don't know. Macrame is a bit weird to explain.
Okay.
So I remember the Scooby-Doo strings that you used to get. Yes. It's a bit like that. All the way up to full-on automated embroidery.
Okay, yeah. And so what would your next goal be? Because I know you've made a really impressive rig there. So what would your next project be?
So I'm working on next is attachments for the rigs, which are way more fiddly. I thought the rigs were actually quite hard. They were more simple than I realised. It's very daunting when doing a big project.
Okay.
But when it comes to doing some of the small auxiliaries, I've been testing connections so mag pouches and that, they slip through the molly and then connect to themselves, and finding a strong enough connection and having it all sewn so it sits in the right gaps and stuff like that is really fiddly work.
Okay.
And you're working in angles of something that's already pre-sewn, so you have to be careful that you don't sew through your own project and then have to go and unpick it because you've sealed it shut.
Right.
So I'm working on, for instance, I've got a bag on the back side of this belt, so we're working on making small bags and mag pouches that go on this, because these can be a pain because of the way they're sewn. They're sewn very differently because they're sewn with no seams on curves and stuff like that, so you have to get it. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. I've got a few other designs of slings and stuff like that I've been making.
Okay.
But my major project, I've still got 2 more of these to make. So I'm still heavily, but we're trying a different pattern.
Okay.
So we're going for a different design again. So we've got 2 designs here, and then we're doing another design, which is slightly different again, and will have a little bit more of a modular feel. We'll have to do some different techniques and sewing, some different materials because of the way it's cut. It's more going to be like more of an older style jungle style, so it'll have a few different techniques, slightly less webbing and slightly more correct sewing. One of the new things I learned recently, because this is the newer one, was how to do, what's it called? Bias binding.
Okay.
It's called bias binding when they bind the edges, which looks really nice when it's done. Bit more of a fiddly procedure to do, but it allows you to be a little bit quicker in sticking it together.
Okay.
So, like, there's 2 panel. We cut out the material on sets of 2, and then sew them together. And then with the bias binding, you're covering all the seams.
Okay.
So where you cut and all is hidden underneath here.
So it's really professional when it's finished. Yeah.
Whereas on this one, you can see seam lines where it was 2 plates sewn together, turned through, and then sewn together. Bias binding hides some of that stuff, so you can go from something that you're proud to wear and looks really good to something that you wouldn't even know has been made, because most garments are bias bound.
Okay, yeah, and so the progression from you started to now, it hasn't been that long.
No.
Do you feel like you have gained?
Yeah, gaining skills within here. It's more not just about skills; it's about patience as well.
Okay.
I'm quite an impatient person, and I did struggle at the start with. You want to get it done now. You want it to be finished. You want to be able to go out and use it, but you learn over time on how to manage your time and manage what you're working on, where you're working, so you're not cutting corners.
Okay.
If you cut corners, you're going back and doing it again.
Yeah, I suppose those skills as well, time management, would be transferable to other elements.
Yeah, and I mean, we only get a limited time. It's about 2 hours for the group, unless you're doing more than one group, I suppose. But each group session is about 2 hours. So fitting in and arranging your time for that 2 hours, so you know what you're doing. So you come in, you sit down, you can have a chat with your friends and people that you've met in the group, but also still managing to get everything that you want to accomplish done is quite handy, because then you don't really think about it. So if someone turns around to you and goes, "Oh, can you do this?" You're like, "Oh yeah, no, sure, it'll take me 15 minutes." And you know that it is actually going to take you 15 minutes, because you're like, "Yeah, I've been there, done that, I know what I'm doing, it's set up." And you can manage, you start to figure out that if you're doing something else, it doesn't even have to be sewing related. You start to think in the mind of a sewer. I'm thinking, well, I've got to do this and I've got to do that, so it's going to take X amount of time. And you start to manage your time a little bit better. I know turning up on time can be quite slow sometimes. But when you start to enjoy it, you want to be here earlier on time. So you start to manage your time, so you're in.
So what you would say is then, if you come along and you sign up for the sewing class, you'll not want to leave.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, when I first did it, I kind of did it because I was being bugged and I was bored. And then when I started doing it, I actually really got into it because I thought, that's not really for me. And then once you start to make stuff and you kind of see how it's coming along, you're thinking, actually, you know what, I kind of enjoy this.
Yeah.
And it sucks you in. It really does. I didn't imagine that, like, 2 years later, I'd own 2 sewing machines and be making this kind of stuff. I thought, I'll just make a wee pair of trousers and a top.
Yeah.
And just go about my merry way. I now have a fully computerized machine, and then I have an old industrial machine, so I can do 2 different types of work. Because that's something that the class allows you to do as well, is experiment with different sewing techniques and different machines.
Yeah, there's a variety of options there. Yeah.
Yeah, we go all the way from back in the 60s to all the way up to the modern day computerized machines.
And then would you say that the teaching staff, they just, to me, they seem to be beyond anything I've ever seen. They can put their hand to anything. So,
Yeah, it's quite amazing. I mean, they don't get a lot of time to do their own kind of work, but when you get a chance to see it, some of the work they do is amazing. So Jack, uh, one of the girls that comes to our group, she was making like a set trousers,
okay.
and she was doing it off on her own. And one of the teachers turned around and goes, "That's actually not a bad idea." And then came and made like 3 or 4 pairs, and was sitting there going, "Oh, they're really cool," because she changed the pattern slightly to suit her, not the original pattern. So they came out different, but you're looking at all the different designs, and you're like, "What? How did you change? You know, from straight leg to flare legged?" And you're sitting there going, "I wouldn't know how to do that."